Peacemaking is more than an idea. It is a place. But where is this place? Peacemaking efforts around the world fail every day. Yes, peacemakers get together in conference rooms, they set agendas, and they discuss the issues that are keeping parties and countries battling with each other and at war with each other. But more often than not, the agendas go nowhere. More often than not, the negotiators leave the conference or leave the negotiations, and they carry with them their positions, clutching them as tightly as their briefcases. They return to the battlegrounds that are destroying communities, families, and human lives. What is the missing link? Peacemaking has been missing this simple and profound discovery and insight that in order to be creating peace, we must be creating places that are safe, from which there is no reason to flee. We call this the intersection of peacemaking and placemaking. The peacemaking movement has much to learn from a newly emerging movement called the Placemaking Movement. The Project for Public Spaces is at the core or the heart of a global placemaking movement. The global placemaking movement is energized by this notion that we can intentionally create places that are vital community spaces that both empower individuals and enrich and nourish communities. Something incredible happens when we bring together the movements of peacemaking and placemaking. The meeting place of peacemaking and placemaking is where we intentionally fashion our world and we co-construct together a desired future. Peacemaking and placemaking have a great synergy with each other, and we're just beginning to discover this synergy. The placemaking movement has been built on 11 essential principles for placemaking. To these 11 essential principles, the peacemaking movement adds an essential 12th principle, which somehow got overlooked. Vital community places need to be safe places. It is only at this intersection of peacemaking and placemaking that we can begin to shape our world together and design our world together. Placemaking reminds the peacemaking community that peacemaking can only happen in the setting of a real community in a real place gathered together. We have made the very important discovery in the peacemaking movement in which I am active that when we put the agenda before the relationship, that the agenda goes nowhere. This is the compelling truth of failed peacemaking efforts around the world. Very simply put, peacemaking efforts fail because we forget to put the relationship before the agenda. I recently received an email from a peace negotiator in the city of Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and they were involved in a negotiation to end the deadly conflict between the countries of Sudan and South Sudan. They wrote to me and they said, "We needed to have begun with the relationship. Without this experience of eating together from a common dish, the agenda is simply going nowhere." You see, some African cultures have long understood something that we've missed about this connection between peacemaking and placemaking. I was recently traveling to San Diego for a conference on conflict transformation at which I was presenting. It was sponsored by the Taos Institute, of which I am an associate. On the shuttle bus ride to the airport, my driver was a young man named Waco, and he was from the Oromo region of Ethiopia. We shared with each other about our common experience of growing up in Africa and then coming to the United States. As he helped me unload my suitcase at the airport, I turned to my friend Waco and I asked him this question. I said, Waco, what does Africa have to teach the West about peacemaking? Waco paused for only a moment before he answered, in Africa, we eat from a common dish. You see, there is great wisdom in this African proverb that says, when we eat from a common dish, we have no enemies. If peacemaking needs placemaking, it is equally true that placemaking needs peacemaking. Our recent history has seen lots of examples of efforts to seize public squares. We could name them. There's something empowering about the sense of taking over a public space. But if public spaces are to endure as places to support and enhance communities, there needs to be peacemaking that comes along with the place-taking. You see, seizing spaces or seizing public places without peacemaking simply never works. The people's movement that led to the occupation of Tiananmen Square in China ended in a deadly conflict. Arguably, the Occupy Wall Street movement fizzled and died out because it was an effort at place-taking or place-seizing without peace-making. It is only at this intersection where peacemaking and placemaking come together that we can begin to co-construct and design a different future for ourselves. Both of them are essential. But what does the intersection of placemaking and peacemaking look like? Yes, it is the place where we eat from a common dish, but it is also the place where we feed one another. In the Horn of Africa, this is called the ritual of gursha. In any country or culture, this intersection of peacemaking and placemaking is a place where we are intimate with each other, where we share our dreams and our aspirations. We share some secrets as well. Sometimes the intersection where peacemaking and placemaking should be happening is littered with the results of our disregard for both peace and place. We may need to clear aside the instruments of war to begin building a country of peace. In Asmara, the city where I was born in Eritrea, the country of Eritrea needed to do some of this housekeeping in order to begin building a country of peace. Sometimes, when we forget to take care of place or are neglectful of place, nature takes over and starts to clean up our messes for us. If we are to imagine a world at peace, and if we are to grow into a world at peace, we need to be busy in our homes, in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and in the global community, creating these places of intersections of peacemaking and placemaking. They don't just happen. In our family home, this could be a shared family meal. Front porches have historically been such places. Front porches are the frontier between the private space of our own home and the public space of the neighborhood. A front porch is a place for sharing a glass of cold water, connecting with our neighbors, becoming civically engaged, or just sitting and visiting. It's a place where we acknowledge the human community that we are part of. In our organizations and our institutions, we can be busy creating these intersections of peacemaking and placemaking. These are places where we call people in an organization to connect around their deepest shared values. It may be a small, not obvious space like a garden. This is Peter's garden at St. George's School. In a university setting, it may be a chapel or it may be a mosque. These are places where we encourage conversation, where we connect with each other, and these are places where we go to be quiet, to reflect, and to pray. The core of every faith tradition of this world calls us to be busy with creating this intersection of peacemaking and placemaking. Every major religion of the world calls us to this place, to move beyond self-interest, to be attentive to the other, and to work together to find a shared higher purpose. This is the place where we exercise our intellects and our hearts in the service of humanity and in the betterment of this planet. The Dalai Lama says, "This planet does not need more successful people. This planet needs more peacemakers. And I would add, it needs more placemakers. It needs more healers. It needs more storytellers. It needs more restorers. And it needs lovers of all kinds." The intersection of peacemaking and placemaking is a place of great hope. My brother Peter visited the country of Eritrea shortly after its terribly costly war for independence. Eritrea was a country whose infrastructure had been almost completely destroyed. Thousands of people had lost their lives. A person could hardly lean against a wall long after the shelling had stopped without wondering if that wall might collapse. When Peter arrived in Asmara, he was greeted by an Eritrean host, a man named Solomon. They connected with each other, discussing what the future of Eritrea and wondering what the future of Eritrea and its people might look like. As they walked across the public square of Asmara together, Solomon insisted on stopping at all places at a shoe shining station. He insisted on having his shoes shined and my brother Peter's shoes shined. Peter was very uncomfortable with this. First of all, sometimes it's comfortable to allow ourselves to be served by others. But guess what? This is what happens in the intersection of peacemaking and placemaking. We serve each other. But shining shoes or polishing shoes seem like an odd priority at this important juncture in history. As they continued walking through the public square of Asmara together, Solomon said to my brother Peter quietly, "Let me explain to you why it's important for me to stop and shine our shoes. You see, when we shine our shoes," he said, "we expect that there will be a tomorrow." He said, "I come here every week to remind myself that there will be a tomorrow. When we if there was no tomorrow or we expected no tomorrow, there would be no reason to shine our shoes. When we shine our shoes, we affirm that there will be a tomorrow." Wisdom from a fellow Eritrean. So what's the takeaway from this? Shine your shoes every week. Shine the shoes of a friend. Better yet, shine the shoes of an enemy. Or wash the feet of somebody else, as is done in ritual or sacrament in many of the religions of the world. Create these places or intersections of peacemaking and placemaking in your home, in your neighborhood, in your community. Add a front porch to your house. Plant a community garden. Maybe if you're really ambitious, build a community center. You see, this intersection of peacemaking and placemaking is a place where we discover that which is sacred in ordinary life. This is the place where we prioritize relationship above agenda. I call this the place of relational presence. This is also the place where we are compelled to take off our shoes because we know that we are standing on holy ground. We are standing on the holy ground of relational presence. So let us be busy together finding this intersection of placemaking and peacemaking. Let us invite into this sacred space our neighbors, our community, our friends, and our family. Let us invite them to stand with us on this holy ground of relationship. Let us invite into this place a world that is yearning for peace and a world that is yearning for places that are safe. If we are to occupy something, let us occupy the sacred space of relational presence. Thank you, shalom, salam alaikum, namaste, peace be with you.